Well, welcome everybody. It is a pleasure to welcome you to the fourth webinar within the WAZA webinar series on sustainability, which have been hosted by members of the WAZA Conservation and Environmental Sustainability Committee and subcommittee chairs. Today, we have a wide range of attendees from many different regions and organizations around the world, and of course, many different time zones. So thank you very much all for joining us. Actually, we would love to hear from you. So please feel free to share in the chat where you're joining us from, and also to ask questions using the chat function or to raise your hand during the dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentations. Today, we will be discussing another very important topic for WAZA, which is the promotion, sourcing, and use of sustainable certified palm oil. And for that, we have invited 4 speakers to discuss this topic with us and share their global and regional perspectives and work. We are delighted to be joined by Inke Sluijs, Director of Market Transformation at the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, the RSPO, as well as Kat Barton, Chelsea Wellmer, and Isabel Tepox, who are leading palm oil awareness programs and campaigns at Chester Zoo in the UK, Cheyenne Mountain Zoo in the US, and Africam Safari in Mexico, respectively. So, without further ado, I have the pleasure to welcome Tracey Gazibara, who is the co-chair of the WAZA Pam Oil Subcommittee and Vice President of Development and Marketing at the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo. Tracey, thank you very much for hosting this webinar, and the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Paula, for the introductions and for having me here today. I'm really excited to talk about something that I'm very passionate about, and hopefully all of you watching are too. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick, and hopefully I'm going to share my screen. There we go. Here we go. So as Paula mentioned, we want to talk a little bit about sustainable palm oil and about an exciting new resource that we have here at the zoo, with WAZA, and that's the short guide for palm oil. I want to first start just to tell you a little bit what to expect today. We have the new resource, Palm Oil Short Guide. We have the 4 inspiring speakers that Paula just mentioned. And I want to talk a little bit about the WAZA MOU with the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, so you can kind of get a background on why we're doing what we're doing. And then also share with you some of the different resources that we've developed as a committee. And of course, much more. And
sorry, Tracey. I'm not sure if your screen sharing was working, but I have it in my screen.
It's not, mine is not working?
No, but I have it on. So if you just want to say next slide, it's fine.
Okay, well, that wasn't good. Okay, next slide. So these are the things I just mentioned. Next slide. So the background with the WAZA RSPO with the MOU, about late 2017 at the conference, the WAZA and RSPO signed a MOU, and there's 7 goals to that MOU, and 4 that are specific to WAZA and hopefully WAZA members. There's 2 that we've been working really hard on. 1, 50% of all members will have a sustainable palm oil awareness program, and 50% will convert non-sustainable palm oil use at their zoo or aquarium to sustainable. And in order to fulfill this MOU, the WAZA Conservation and Environmental Committee created a sustainable palm oil committee. Next slide. So what has the Palm Oil Subcommittee been doing? Well, we've been working on a lot of different programs and resources for WAZA members. 1, we do a survey once every year to determine our progress on the MOU. If you have filled out that survey, we really appreciate it. And if you see it come by again, I hope you will fill it out, because it really helps us focus on what we need to do to help our members, help us be successful with WAZA and the MOU with the RSPO. One of the big projects we worked on was developing a sustainable palm oil resource website. And it has so many tools and resources and so much more. You don't have to start your own palm oil program because we have so many things and materials for you to do it already. So if you haven't seen that, check that out. There's the website there. And then also really exciting, we're in the final stages of a new global sustainable palm oil shopping mobile app. We hope it'll go live in January. It'll be available when it goes live in US, Canada, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. We're also looking for other partners. So we developed this app so that we could add countries as we had partners. So if you have interest in having a mobile shopping app in your country, please reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you about that. And then finally, we have the new Sustainable Palm Oil Short Guide that was launched at the conference in October. If you haven't seen it, we hope that you will. I think Paula can share with you a link to make it easy for you to find it. Next slide. And so I wanted to tell you just briefly a little bit about what's in that guide and hopefully encourage you to take a look at it if you haven't. Of course, it starts with just the basics. What is palm oil? Why boycotting is not the answer. Information on the Roundtable Sustainable Palm Oil, which Inke is going to share some of that with you today. And then a little bit about where's palm oil grown and what species are affected by palm oil. What's really exciting too, we have 10 case studies from WAZA member zoos, and they talk about the different programs that they have and what they're working on. And hopefully you'll read some of those and they'll inspire you or pique your interest to say, hey, that's something we could do too. So hopefully you'll take a look at that and be encouraged to do your own sustainable palm oil awareness program or start sourcing palm oil, sustainable palm oil at your facility as well. We also have a couple pages dedicated to overcoming barriers for just that. That second goal that I talked about resourcing sustainable palm oil at your zoo or aquarium or your facility that you're at. It's always hard to start new programs. So hopefully with having this information available to you, you'll be able to overcome some of those challenges. And then of course, this guide also has many useful tools and resources as well, and a lot more. So sorry for the slow start there, but we're really excited to share so much more with you today. And so without further ado, I'll introduce now or hand it over to Inke with the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil.
Thank you, Tracy. And let me grab my slides. Is it in presentation mode now?
It is.
Yes, perfect.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Tracy, and thank you, WAZA, for organizing this webinar on such an important topic. Zooming out a little bit, why are we talking about palm oil? Well, palm oil is the most consumed vegetable oil in the world, and consumption is increasing with the increase in welfare and the growing human population. So palm oil is very popular. It's used in many different products, as you will start to realize as soon as you start to sort of take stock of what you use or what you sell at outlets. It's used in many different products, but it's also a very high yielding crop. So palm oil is 4 to 10 times more productive than other oil crops. You see that here it's projected that the global demand for vegetable oils is expected to sort of double by 2050. And here you see sort of the land that is under production by oil crops, and only 10% is having oil palms on it, and that generates 35% of the vegetable oils needed or used. So palm oil, and we all know this, is cultivated around the equator. It has lifted many farmers out of poverty, but unfortunately, it overlaps with areas where we have very high biodiversity and key species. So with that in mind and other issues related to the palm oil sector, the RSPO was founded already in 2004. It's an international membership organization, and we unite 7 stakeholder groups that are active in the palm oil sector. So we have the oil palm growers, processors and traders, retailers, banks and investors, social NGOs, environmental NGOs, and consumer goods manufacturers. These 7 stakeholder groups define themselves what a sustainable standard for production looks like. So our grower members have to adhere to these 7 principles that are built around prosperity, people, planet. So the growers have to behave ethically, transparently, operate legally, respect rights, optimize productivity, respect human and community rights, include smallholders in this journey, respect workers' rights and conditions, and of course, protect, conserve, and enhance ecosystems and the environment. So the standard is around no deforestation, no new plantings on peat, no use of fires, the protection of human rights and labor rights, and paying workers a decent living wage. Because we're with WAZA members today, I want to spend a little bit of time on the principle 7, which is around protecting the environment. So criterion 7.12 says, land clearing does not cause deforestation or damage any areas required to protect or enhance high conservation values or high carbon stock forests. So high carbon values are defined in RSPO as 6 different values. So you have species diversity, landscape level ecosystems and habitats, ecosystem services, community needs, and cultural values. And this morning I was looking at the statistics, and RSPO grower members have in total preserved nearly 300,000 hectares of HCV area. So that was the most recent data. RSPO works with independent third-party certification, and the certification bodies are accredited. We have a grievance mechanism that can be used, supply chain certification, traceability via IT platforms, and interactive mapping of the concessions of RSPO members, as well as hotspot monitoring for fires. What we have seen is that RSPO members have stronger equity returns. So RSPO members outperform non-members by 24.7%. In terms of lower environmental impact, we see that RSPO certified palm oil has 35% lower global warming impact and 20% lower biodiversity impact from land use changes. And then here I was just reviewing the CO2 emission savings done by our members, and it comes to 1.4 million CO2 equivalents per year. And that is done by avoiding land clearance, peat, and conservation areas. So what we find challenging in this journey is to ensure that smallholders are included in this transition to make sustainable palm oil the norm. Fortunately, we see that they have higher profitability, and that is due to lower costs of production and higher yields when they join RSPO. So that is a positive element for smallholders. So worldwide, since 2004, we've grown significantly. We currently have 4.5 million hectares certified, more than 5,000 members operating in more than 100 countries or territories. In total, there's 14.1 million tons of certified sustainable palm oil produced, and there is over 6,000 facilities supply chain certified. 19% of the global production is RSPO certified, and we've seen that figure for quite some years. But the total global palm oil production increases and the certified production increases, but we're somehow not capable of breaking the trend of that 19%. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way. About smallholders, it's really important, like I mentioned before, to bring them along in the journey. In terms of percentage, it's 40% of the palm oil that's being produced by smallholders, depending on the country. And in some countries it's a lot higher, and there's fewer small companies. What we do to encourage them to produce sustainably is we have produced an independent smallholder standard by which smallholders can have a stepwise approach to full compliance of the RSPO standard. There's a smallholder training academy to build capacity of smallholders. We have a smallholder support fund to help them with the costs of certification. And there's a smallholder engagement platform where smallholders can connect with market players to support their projects. So that was all about growers, and the standard is about growers, and that is very important. But what we need is the entire member base to commit to making sustainable palm oil the norm. And for that, we have introduced the shared responsibility requirements. It's a set of requirements that applies to all non-grower members, covering topics and themes very similar to the ones in the grower standard. So all non-grower members have to put in place a set of policies and plans, for example, around ethical conduct, human rights, greenhouse gas emissions, etc. On top of that, we have targets, annual targets for processors and traders, consumer goods manufacturers and retailers, whereby we model where demand and supply meet, right? So we need to increase demand to ensure that the materials that is supplied to the market is taken up by the market. So for 2021, we have a percentage increase for processors and traders of 2%. And for consumer goods manufacturers and retailers, they have to increase their certified sustainable palm oil by 15%. So shared responsibility requirements reflect unique roles of different membership categories to help make sustainable palm oil the norm. But also NGOs, social and environmental NGOs, are asked to contribute to this. So we ask NGOs to do the analysis, the research, advice on support and training, monitor implementation of shared responsibility requirements, promote consumer awareness. You're much closer to the consumers than many of us are. Support smallholder inclusion, engage government where you can, work on jurisdictions, work with directly impacted communities, and educate the peers on sustainable palm oil. There's a trademark to positively communicate around the use of sustainable palm oil that can be used by certified members of RSPO. We see an increased interest for the trademark. The applications for the license have gone up from being in 12 countries to 60 countries, and it appears on over 400 consumer products. Top 5 countries to use the trademark are Germany, US, UK, Italy, and Malaysia. It can be used on product, but also in corporate communication on your website or CSR reports. We see that we have 1,400 license holders today. So how can WAZA members contribute? I think, Tracey, you showed the brochure. That's a really nice summary of all the research and all the case studies that have been done. That is a very comprehensive guide, and I encourage you all to familiarize yourself with it. In brief, we recommend to become an RSPO member so that you can contribute to the positive movement for making sustainable palm oil the norm. At the same time, I know zoos sell incredible amounts of ice cream and fry in cooking oils. Check whether there's palm oil in these products and other products that you have on the shelves of the shops or of the restaurants. Make sure that your suppliers deliver RSPO certified products to you. If they are unable to do it, you can cover those volumes with RSPO credits, and we promote the use of independent smallholder credits to cover those volumes. Implement shared responsibility, develop policies and plans, and promote increase in certified sustainable palm oil uptake. Engage with your peers, visitors, suppliers, investors to become an RSPO member and adopt sustainable sourcing policies. And then lastly, promote awareness on the importance of certified sustainable palm oil to the general public. I'm happy to answer questions after this. The website has a lot of information, but first, back to you, Tracey.
Thank you so much, Inke, for that great overview of the RSPO. Really appreciate you being here, and I'm sure you'll have some questions a little bit later. Next, I'd like to invite Kat to go ahead and share her presentation with us.
Okay, that should be working now. I hope everyone can see slides.
Yes.
Brill. So I'm going to give you a whistle-stop tour of Chester Zoo's work. And yeah, as we've got a lot of information on our websites as well, happy to answer questions. So it is really a quick run through. So we started working on palm oil almost 10 years ago now, and this is the big reason why. We've got orangutans at the zoo. We know that species like this are really important for our visitors. There's a real connection between our animals and our audience that comes into the zoo. And so for us, this was very much a key issue where we felt that we could make a big difference at the zoo, while impacting the situation on the ground for orangutans and other species. Just trying to get the next slide on. There we go. So when we first started discussing about what we should do about palm oil, the starting point really was to look at that whole approach. What did we want to achieve? And for us, that was be a sustainable business to start with. So, we had a process to go through ourselves to make sure that we were using sustainable palm oil, engage and inspire others, and then be a voice for change and empower others. And so the first thing we did was created a position. So we did this before we went public on any of our palm oil work. There was a lot of work involved with this. There was a lot of conversations with directors, with internal staff, to really make sure that the whole staff at the zoo were behind us. In the end, this was very much director-led. We were very lucky that we were able to get that support. And so we worked throughout all of the departments in the zoo. So although this started off very much as a kind of field programs, field conservation project, we very quickly established a core group from marketing and fundraising and education and key people within the zoo who could talk very confidently about palm oil, know our position and be able to share that with the staff. So that was really key. We spoke to all, I think at the time it was around 700 members of staff at the zoo. So we had short talks and things to make sure that anyone in the zoo could answer questions on palm oil. So the position was really important. This very much followed as well what we felt was practical. So, with the chain of custody with RSPO, supporting RSPO in terms of our internal procurement was really the only way we could go to make sure that we were supporting sustainable palm oil. And so next step then, once we created a position, was informing. So a lot of in-zoo education. So this was at different animal exhibits, during talks, even in our shops and cafes, we had signage up. We did everything we could to try and share the message around palm oil and really get people understanding what palm oil was, what the issue was, and what the solutions are and how we could act. And then enabling was a key point. So we were giving all of this information about palm oil, and rather than things being negative and people feeling that they didn't have a part to play, we enabled people, made it easy for them to make choices. So we came up with sustainable palm oil shopping lists so that we had common manufacturers and brands in the UK that were using sustainable palm oil on an easily accessible list. We created toolkits. So just as we went through procurements through our supply chains in the zoo for human food consumption, we then wrote that up and helped others to do the same, and made this available so that local restaurants could actually go through the same process as we did. and engaging as well. So palm oil, we've always found, has been, when we started off, such a difficult topic to talk about. As soon as you mention palm oil, people still today will go on the negative. It will be very much, oh, palm oil's bad, we shouldn't be buying palm oil. And there was less knowledge, and there has been less knowledge about sustainability and what sustainable palm oil is. And it's very easy as well for the media to just go straight for a blanket boycott. It's a very easy black and white situation then, and it's not. We all know that palm oil is a lot more complicated than that. And so we really made it fun. We tried to engage people in the topic, make it less boring. It's incredibly complex, especially for children. So creating these really nice, easily accessible messages was really key. So we had all these resources on our website, which are freely available to download. We had palm oil songs and raps, we had toolkits, we had games. We tried to do so many things just to make it more engaging. And then the last step for us really was championing. So once we'd done all of that work, we really felt like we had a place in this conversation where we could really start to influence industry, other businesses, governments. And so we've really stepped up since then as well, really making sure that we are going through this championing phase. And a big part of that was our Sustainable Palm Oil Communities project. So this was something we developed as a behaviour change model, very much trying to, with the understanding that knowledge and education is great, we need to do that, but it doesn't often elicit these behaviour changes that we need to see. So we needed to create a way of making industry and people change their behaviour and move from a negative to a positive and start supporting sustainable palm oil. So we went through a social marketing behaviour change model, selecting what the behaviours were, understanding what people's barriers were to supporting sustainable palm oil. A lot of these we could overcome very easily. A lot was education, a lot was lack of resource, lack of information. Some of the barriers were false barriers. It was just a lack of understanding. So we went through all of these and then came up with this Sustainable Palm Oil Communities model. And what we did with this is we worked with businesses within our Chester community. So use the zoo as that influence. We have a good place in the community in Chester. We're one of the key businesses, the key tourist attraction. And so we used that to our advantage. We started talking to local restaurants and cafes, to the schools catering providers about sustainable palm oil, and came up with a model where Chester then became the world's first sustainable palm oil city. This was a model that really took off. The community in Chester were really proud of the fact that Chester had achieved this collaboratively. And we then started developing the concept to be promoted in other communities around the UK. So we now have 7 communities in total taking on the project. So this is villages, towns, a whole county is taking on the project. And what we're now starting to see is key suppliers that we've seen shift from having no palm oil policy to now being RSPO certified. And it's having a massive impact. And what's really nice about this is we've been able to engage WAZA members throughout the UK. So we have 2 other WAZA members, Wild Planet Trust and National Marine Aquarium, who are running projects in their areas as well. So it's a really nice collaborative project where other zoo members can take it on and run it in their own way, in their own communities. We feel like we've achieved a lot with the project, but there has been challenges along the way. A lot of these started off with procurement challenges. When we started, it was really difficult to find sustainable palm oil in industries such as animal feed and cosmetics and cleaning products. Food was much more simple, so we were able to achieve that first. And what we made sure as well is that we didn't let that stop us. So although we were struggling with animal feed and sourcing segregated sustainable palm oil in animal feed, which is still difficult to this day, we didn't let it stop us. We wrote our policy. We were very clear that this was a journey. And we started off doing what we could. We put very clear kind of time-bound plans in. And we shared with the public that actually this is really difficult, and we're moving with the industry. We're not expecting it to be perfect. We know there are challenges with the RSPO. We know that there needs to be more transparency and more traceability. There's all of these issues, but it's not putting us off supporting it, because this is actually a model that we have where we can source deforestation-free sustainable palm oil. We should all be doing it, but we should all be working collaboratively to make it better. So this was very much our public stance all along. And I think the key now as well, so we went through our first audits 8 years ago. We're going through our second audits now, so it doesn't stand still. We're looking now at procurement of deforestation-free commodities, and this means going down the route of segregated RSPO supply chains, which again is another step forward. And we're working with other WAZA members to source animal feed more sustainably and working with that industry. And then we're moving on to other commodities. So we're very much using palm oil and what we've done with palm oil as a model, and helping to move forward from them. And so this is just a key slide, just almost summarising all of the different areas where we've been able to work. And I think working with industry is really key to show that as NGOs and conservation organisations that we're in it with them and we will support them to be sustainable. Working within the zoos and aquarium sector, so things like this with WAZA, we can work together and we can use our collective voice, particularly when it comes to those more difficult conversations around the likes of animal feed as I've discussed. Working with governments and policy is another key thing that we can all be working on, and really collaborating as well. So we've got lots of different examples. Ours is just one example of a campaign. There's so many other examples. So you will find other WAZA members that you can share resources with and almost link up with and share the journey. And so these are some of the key things we've managed to achieve with the palm oil campaign. And the whole everyone at the zoo has a part to play in this, so every department, and I think that's one of the key things to get across as well, is it's not just a conservation or field programs issue. This runs through your commercial teams, your animal supplies teams, your marketing teams, your education teams, and actually giving them the empowerment to be able to get involved in the project and run it and feel an ownership, I think has been one of the things that's made our campaign more of a success, is that everyone has got a part to play. So I'll leave it there. As I said, it was a very quick run through, and hopefully we'll have some questions later on.
Thank you so much, Kat, for that amazing presentation. Chester Zoo has just been a leader in sustainable palm oil for sure. The next speaker I'd like to introduce is Chelsea with the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo.
Thank you, Tracy. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here. Hopefully everyone can see that. Nodding of heads, perfect. Okay. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about what Cheyenne Mountain Zoo here in the United States is doing to promote sustainable palm oil, kind of a very brief case study of our work. We've been involved in sustainable palm oil for a little over a decade now and are really passionate about this. If you've been aware of our app, which I'll talk about a little bit later, and some of the work we've been doing, you're going to see a nice synopsis of that. So our message here at the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo is that we want to purchase products from companies that are members of the RSPO and are working towards using only certified sustainable palm oil. So that's it in a nutshell. The message is not to avoid or boycott palm oil, or potentially to avoid palm oil, but when you can't, to use sustainable palm oil. This can get very confusing to the public. It's a difficult action. They probably won't then participate in trying to figure out which companies are using sustainable palm oil, and therefore we're not going to move in our goal to make sustainable palm oil the norm. Regionally, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, which operates primarily out of the US, but across North America, also has a similar position statement. So I wanted to share a brief portion of that position statement, which came out in July of 2014. So AZA recognizes that unsustainable palm oil production results in massive deforestation, rapid biodiversity loss in tropical ecosystems, and significant greenhouse gas emissions. Global consumption of palm oil and its derivatives is increasing, requiring strong conservation action to save species. By facilitating change through audience and stakeholder engagement, AZA accredited zoos and aquariums are well positioned to help break the link between palm oil production and deforestation. Although there are many steps needed across multiple sectors to ensure that palm oil certified as sustainable by the RSPO is deforestation free, AZA understands that the RSPO is a critical part of the solution to palm oil conservation crisis. So just want to throw that out there that this is AZA's position statement. So this is here in the US and North America, the general consensus on why we should be supporting sustainable palm oil, and of course, supporting the Roundtable on sustainable palm oil as the best method to make sustainable palm oil the norm. So at Cheyenne Mountain Zoo, we actually created a shopping guide mobile app that works in Canada and the United States to take kind of all of the research and a lot of that really hard action out of the consumer's hands. We wanted to do all of it for them. So we personally here at the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo research all of the companies that are members of the RSPO, and we put them in this app and we allow consumers to search for that company's products through our quick search product feature, or they can scan the barcodes of the products they want to buy. What will happen is it will tell the app user whether or not that company is RSPO certified and how we've actually rated that company, because we do recognize that while all members of the RSPO have committed to sustainable palm oil and have at least made that first right step, some are much further along in their journey to source 100% sustainable palm oil than others. So we've rated them on a scale of excellent to needs improvement. So green companies are excellent, yellow companies are good, and then we have orange companies that are needs improvement. Again, all of these companies are RSPO members. They've all made that first step and committed to sustainable palm oil. But just in case someone wants to know, if they want to buy from a company that's doing a little bit better than others, they can do that through our rating system in our app. You can find our app in the Google Play Store or in the Apple App Store. If you just type in sustainable palm oil and look for that little green orangutan logo, you should find it. Now, the thing is, though, is of course, as Tracey mentioned, we are working on a new global app that will replace this app eventually. We're very excited about that. But in the meantime, we have this one available for you. We also create shopping guides that get distributed, usually for seasons or major holidays. So on this slide, I shared our most popular guide, which is our Halloween guide. Of course, we celebrated Halloween here just a couple of days ago. This guide usually gets the most attention just because of the holiday that it's focused on and the incredible amounts of candy consumption that happens here in the US. About 25% of all candy consumption occurs at Halloween here in the US. So this guide is particularly important. All of the brands, the product brands that you see on this guide are from companies that are members of the RSPO. We also have categories like self-care supplies. So showing that there is a range of what kind of products you can find palm oil in. It's not just food products, it's also self-care products like shampoo and makeup. It's really in quite a bit. It's in about 50% of the stuff that a consumer can find in the grocery store. These guides are updated yearly, so they're only good for 1 year. So we have them uploaded on our website, as well as the WAZA Sustainable Palm Oil website, and you can always check back there to see the new guides as they come out yearly. Here at the zoo, we also want to give guests another way to take action other than just, shopping and their personal consumer habits. So we actually have letter writing stations and coloring for guests. Usually, the coloring is for kids, but anyone of all ages can participate as well. And then for adults, we have what we call our petition tables. So we have petition letters with lines where they can just put their signature and where they're from. And we send that to companies who we are trying to get to join the RSPO. And we ask them to join and then to use, of course, 100% certified sustainable palm oil. We also use these stations as an opportunity to thank companies who are doing a great job, who have committed to 100% sustainable palm oil, and often who have already met that goal and are sourcing 100% certified sustainable palm oil. In the campaign that we're doing, it's not all negative and doom and gloom. There's a lot of great work that has been done. There's a lot of goals that have been accomplished. We want to recognize that a lot of these companies are currently leading the way and setting an industry standard. So it's also good to show them that we're noticing that as well. We have a lot of graphics here at the zoo that let our visitors know how palm oil is involved in their daily life from the moment that they wake up and throughout their day when they maybe eat lunch or do their laundry or wash something, and how they can help. So engaging graphics, I think, are really useful to connect with a visitor. you know, graphics are one of those things that you think people might not pay attention to, but I can promise that every time I walk into our primate building, I notice that visitors are stopping, they are reading, they are paying attention, because once we connect them with the orangutan or the tiger or the animal that they care about, they want to know how to help. And so we want to give them that action piece. Here's another example of the graphics that we use here at our zoo. So we actually have two different families of orangutans that we care for. We have an adult male and female Sumatran orangutan with a juvenile female, and then an adult and female Bornean orangutan with a juvenile female as well. And so we've created these little family trees to connect visitors with those two kind of family groups. And then of course we kind of focus on where they're located in the world and what that conservation issue is. And for us, it is palm oil and how we want to promote sustainable palm oil to protect these orangutans' counterparts in the wild. We also have a sustainable palm oil store, which is probably the area where I see the most visitor interaction. People walk by and they're like, wait, can I buy a product here at the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo? This is interesting. And so they like to read more, and they realize that we've set up this miniature store where they can actually download our app and then practice using it. So all of the products in our store are from companies that are RSPO members. So we can kind of show them, you know, here are really great products that you can buy if you want to support sustainable palm oil and help protect wild orangutans. And here's also an example of a variety of different products that palm oil or palm oil derivatives can be found in. So this is a really great engaging way to connect with visitors. A lot of these examples and more, because we have a lot more signage, I can fit it all in one slide, can be found on our website, cmzoo.org/palm oil toolkit. We've actually coalesced a lot of different resources, and it's not just graphics, it's also activities that you can do with kids or families. It's educational documents. It's talking about how you can discuss palm oil in 30 seconds or less. We call those elevator speeches. So you can find that on our website in our palm oil awareness toolkit. However, we also have a lot of this information on our WAZA Palm Oil website that's promoting sustainable palm oil. So on that website, you can find Cheyenne Mountain Zoo's resources, as well as tools and resources from zoos and aquariums all over the world, so that your organization can start your own awareness program, and also how your organization can find out how you can source sustainable palm oil. I tried to screen grab a variety of the graphics and signage that we have on that website, but there were over 50 different signs, so I could only grab a few. There's also hundreds of files. So I highly recommend checking out this website. It's a really great resource. And if there's anything in there that you're interested in, that you think your organization could potentially use, and you want to know more about it, you can always contact the WAZA Palm Oil Sustainability Committee, and we can get you in touch with that organization or potentially provide you more information about that file. Another great opportunity, actually, I mentioned the letter writing earlier. So Cheyenne Mountain Zoo and Oregon Zoo here in the United States, as well as some other zoos who are signing on, we're about to start conversations with Amazon, who now owns Whole Foods Market, which is a pretty big grocery store chain here in the United States. We are going to start discussions with them about joining the RSPO. I know the RSPO has been working for quite a while to get them to join, so hopefully we can be that last final push and they can make that really important commitment, because this is a pretty influential business that we would like to see doing the right thing, and that can help set and be a benchmark for other companies in the industry. So if this is something that you think your organization would be interested in signing on and helping us with this campaign, we're going to be sending a letter soon. Please let us know. We would love to get you involved, and I would be happy to share more information about that if anyone has questions. So that is the end of my presentation. You can contact me at palmoil@cmzoo.org, and that will get in touch with our palm oil team here at the Cheyenne Mountain Zoo. And I'm going to take this back to Tracey.
Thank you so much, Chelsea, for sharing all that great information. We have one last speaker that I'd like to introduce now. Isa, would you like to go ahead and take over and share your presentation?
Hey, Tracey. Yeah, sure. Give me 1 sec. And here it is. So I'm here working on behalf of the whole team, the Conservation and Education Department in Africam Safari, Mexico. So I'm going to talk to you guys about this project that we've been working on from almost 10 years now. This project is called On the Palm of Your Hand. And in Africam, we have a different approach because we needed to have a look at the whole problem and see where is Mexico and how we can contribute to that problem. So everything began back in 2011. So the idea of creating this is focusing on the visitors that were going to African safaris. So there's a huge variety. They come from all different places in Mexico and outside Mexico sometimes, but mainly families with kids. So we were working with those users in mind. As we have a huge problem here, we needed to focus on the real problem for Mexico. So it's about taking the palm oil closer to them and make it visible to them, because sometimes they didn't even know where it was, or that they were consuming it, or that they were using products that have palm oil. So it was like showing this whole new world to them, and it's like, okay, it exists and it works like this way. So we were like, in all the change, all the process, we were like on the first step with this campaign. So it was that, letting them know that it exists and it is an important thing to have in mind. The second one is how these, like let them know like the relationship between the species, the animals, and the ecological impact it has on nature, like how they from home could also do something that they don't need it to be even at the zoo or in other places, that they could do that back on their houses or at home. So then we created this campaign that has different steps, and these are some of them. When you visit African safari, we have two important areas. The first one is a safari ride that you do on your car or in a bus to see all the animals. And then you have another section that is called the adventure zone, and that's the section where you will walk in, seeing more animals, usually smaller species. And this is where we added some spots so our team could talk to the visitors about this topic. And it started like showing them pictures of the palm trees and all the species that were in those ecosystems, make them like take them closer to the issues. Then we were talking to them about how this is always in our daily lives, and how they could take this decision from home, how they can, when they are just buying groceries or things, they could do that change. And including on these talks we were having with them, we had, that the information about palm trees and palm oil. We also had some letters. So if they were feeling like really inspired with this talk, they could fill this letter and maybe invite some friend or some members of their family to join the campaign. We also had some drawings so kids could, we could get closer to kids in a different way. And we also had another type of letters that were for companies. So if one of them was like, okay, I now get it and I want to do something extra, not just from home, they could fill these letters and send it to companies. In Mexico, it's not like really not, or it wasn't like a known topic. So any of those options was important for us. The idea of these areas is that they could engage with all the issue and know that they could do something. It was like, okay, this exists, it causes this problem, but it's not like everything's bad, so you can do something. We're doing something at the zoo. So it was like telling the visitors that they could also be part of the solution. So it's like, we're all in this together, we can work with this as a team. Then we were, related to this campaign, there was the design of this poster that was presented by the CEO of Africam in a Congress, the Congress of WAZA and SCAM, that was in 2012. Actually, I have the poster in a better view here. And the idea, we were working a lot with the process of how to get closer to our visitors or to people in Mexico in general. Or in the case of this Congress, it was Mexico and Latin America, so it was something bigger. So the idea of creating this poster is to show, the beginning is like more with a storytelling idea, like how we get closer or feel empathy with the animals and the plants and everything that was surrounding this problem. Then we were like, okay, this is the introduction, like this is trade mode, then we have this problem, and this is how you can do something to help. So it's once again encourages them to be part of the solution. Then in the later years, we were keeping those talks on the adventure zone. And this was pretty important because we had like this interaction and we could get closer. So since it was like a member of the educational team that was working with the visitors, they could have like more a more personal attention, and they could have like ask more things. And related, this was on the adventure zone, that is this section that where you are walking in the zoo, but also the safari is a huge thing, and all of our visitors are always on the safari. It's like that place you can't leave when you visit African safari. So we created like this training process. So all the guides that were on the buses are giving information when the visitors were arriving to the zoo. They always see one of these guides. So there was like these trainings where we could tell the guides exactly like all the important messages we wanted them to share with the visitors. So when you are at the safari it could be on the bus or on your car, and you have a guide with you, you have all this information that is also relevant because on the safari you get to see different species that live in those ecosystems where all the palm oil context is happening. So that's how we could like share even more these ideas, and that happens even nowadays with the rides. Now we have more activities, we have different ways to approach our visitors. So right now we are just adjusting everything so it could fit this new way of sharing information that we have at the park. And actually now we're working with different groups. Now we're having some help from the younger visitors, so we're creating new things. We don't have it ready so far, but it's gonna be pretty interesting, and we can't wait to share this with you all in a few months. But this is what we do, like pretty briefly, what we do at Africam Safari. So this is the end of the presentation.
Thank you so much, Isa, for all that information. I think we're going to have a few minutes for questions. You already know that my technology skills aren't very good, so I'm going to do my best here to see if I can see questions that people might have. Let's see what we got here. And if you know what would be really helpful is if you've asked questions, I've been looking and I know people have been answering some of those questions. If you want to start right now and either, I would say, put something in the chat and I will go from there. So if you asked once, please ask again, it'll be easier. And if it's someone specific that you want to answer the question, please include that as well. Any questions out there? No question.
Yeah, Tracey, we were having an interesting discussion with Carl between some of my colleagues who are fortunately answering the questions, and there was another question around. So Carl's suggestion was that RSPO is also like focusing on reduction in consumption, which is an interesting one, right? We always talk, and I hope you didn't misunderstand me. We talk about increasing consumption of certified material. We're definitely not promoting an increase in consumption per se. So whenever palm oil is used, we want to see that it comes from sustainable sources and free of deforestation and human rights violations, but we're not promoting palm per se. What we're also saying is that sometimes companies are looking for alternatives, and they have to be very aware of the footprint of the alternatives. So we know that for many vegetable oils, you will have a larger footprint in different communities, different biodiversity hotspots. So you have to be conscious of what you're doing and whether you require more land if you switch to these alternatives. About the question for biofuels, I think it's very clear that the European Commission has decided many years ago that it was a good idea to replace fossil fuels by biofuels, and palm could be one. But they're now phasing it out. So the European Commission has chosen alternatives like electrification and solar power over palm oil, and I think that's a really good decision. Unfortunately, other parts of the world are still in the phase of thinking about renewable energies compared to fossil fuels, and are heading in the same direction, trying to replace fossil fuels by palm oil, which the net result may not be as sustainable as it would if you switch to solar power or wind energy or other means, right? So we have to really do cautious analysis before we change the sourcing. And we say the best alternative to palm oil is sustainable palm oil, but you need a full analysis of the impact that you want to create.
Thank you for that, Inke. There's a question here for Kat. Can you talk a bit about political resistance you may have encountered and your municipality and strategies to overcome that?
Sorry, repeat that again for me, Tracy.
Talk a bit about political resistance you may have encountered in your municipality and strategies to overcome that.
Yeah, so we definitely got a lot of resistance to start with around kind of the palm oil free versus sustainable debate. You know, that was something that we really had to really work hard to overcome. There is so much negative talk in the media about palm oil that it's really difficult to switch that without a very long conversation. It's very easy to have that very quick snapshot of the palm oil free, which is what we were getting. And so actually how we overcame it in the end is by using that community behavior change approach, and really having those deep conversations with people and building it up from the bottom. I think what we tend to find is that you get very quick hits on the media with someone going palm oil free, and that gets splashed over every newspaper, over all of social media. And it's a very, you know, it's nice for the media to share bad news, and people seem to like bad news. Whereas actually, if you go from the bottom, build it up from schools and communities, really embed that knowledge about sustainability. And yes, there are issues with sustainable palm oil. Yes, we do still need to overcome things, but actually what's the alternative? And start having those deep conversations, build it up from the bottom. And that's how we kind of approached it. And what we found now is that, you know, in Chester, there's very much a knowledge of sustainable palm oil. In all these other communities across the UK, you know, Newquay, Oxford, all these other towns and cities that are taking the project on, they're doing similar. And then collectively, we're creating a bit of a national change, if you like. So it's working from the bottom up. It takes longer, but I think you get more out of it in the end.
Thank you, Kat. We have another question. When someone is a member of the RSPO, how are they held accountable? I'll send that to you, Inke.
Thanks, Samantha, for the question. I was actually typing away, hoping that I could finish in time, conscious of the clock being at the hour. So RSPO members, grower companies and supply chain members that are certified, have an annual surveillance audit. On top of that, there is technology that is monitoring performance. So we have live hotspot monitoring for the occurrence of fires, for example. How are they held accountable? It's the annual audits by independent certification bodies. It's technology like the hotspot hub where we track forest fires. Also, we are very much helped by the NGO community that monitors compliance and files complaints to the RSPO complaint system. I think that's also very important to have that additional work by local NGOs or communities raising issues with RSPO member companies, and we mediate and resolve these complaints.
Thank you so much. I do think we're coming to the end of the webinar. I hope that everything you've heard today has been helpful. And one of the main messages I think that I hope we've all heard is that working together is how we're going to get there to make sustainable palm oil the norm. It takes a lot of work, as Kat has mentioned, what we've seen at Cheyenne Mountain Zoo. I'm sure Isa has found that. But with zoos and aquariums and other organizations working together to continue to push sustainable palm oil that's deforestation free, and get the negative messages out of the media, and also transitioning some of those zoos and aquariums that are still thinking that boycotting is the way to go. So if we can all work together, Chelsea mentioned of getting a lot of organizations to all say, you know what, we're not going to take it anymore. We need sustainable palm oil, and here's why. And Kat, I know you didn't mention it, but they did a sign up for kind of talking about what all these zoos and aquariums and different NGOs believed was palm oil, sustainable palm oil is what we need to be pushing. So again, thank you to all the speakers for joining us today. And I hope that if you haven't, you'll check out the short guide, the palm oil short guide, and the WAZA resource website. We'll have so many materials for you to start your own awareness program and help you start moving your own organizations from non-sustainable palm oil to sustainable palm oil. So thanks again all, and hopefully we'll see you in person one of these days soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to
Bye.
WAZA for getting this all set up for us.